Just as the war in Tianhai City quickly came to a thrilling yet expected end, a far more dangerous and grueling war was looming in Linhai City not far away. At this moment, inside a shopping mall building in Linhai City, 15 foreign nationals, obviously members of the Eclipse Moon, had gathered and were enjoying a peaceful meal in this abandoned warehouse. Sitting on a perfectly stack of cardboard boxes was Jinguji Saikairo. A middle-aged man wearing dark-rimmed glasses stared directly ahead and said in a hoarse voice, "We have killed so many people here, and the people sent by the Jiangnan district to hunt us down will soon be here. Team leader, what do you think? If we don't take our leave, it will be very dangerous for us to fight them when they arrive." We're again introduced to the gray newsboy cap man, Fengguang Yuanjin. Apparently, he's the leader of the Eclipse group. Fengguang Yuanjin smiled when he heard what Jinguji Saikairo just said, but his smile gave a sense of an evil charm. He pointed at Jinguji Saikairo with a confident and flamboyant demeanor. "Your worry is well-founded. However, if we don't let them see the strength of our Eclipse group, how can they cooperate with us?" Jinguji Saikairo placed down his half-eaten meal with a look of disgust and worry. "You are always like this. You like adventure, which is understandable. And although Mayumi is here, the feeling of walking on a tightrope is really not pleasant." Fengguang Yuanjin smiled and walked to the supposed witch in the team, Takeuchi Mayumi. "But the current situation is the most beneficial thing for us, isn't it? Don't worry. The Jiangnan region will definitely not use all its strength to deal with us. As far as I know, there are many internal troubles in their region, enough for them to be overwhelmed. As long as we give them a little painful lesson and let them know that we are not easy to mess with, we will have a chance to negotiate." Fengguang Yuanjin smiled and stretched out his hand, making a small gesture with his thumb and index finger. "We'll just give them a little neon shock, and that will be enough to give us a chance to negotiate." Jinguji Saikairo pushed up his glasses, feeling a little helpless about Fengguang Yuanjin's adventurous spirit. He looked at Takeuchi Mayumi, who was quietly eating her meal next to him as Fengguang Yuanjin approached. "Mayumi, let's start today's divination, shall we?" Unexpectedly, Mayumi Takeuchi turned a deaf ear to his words. Fengguang Yuanjin smiled and reached out to gently touch her head. "Mayumi, let's start." Mayumi Takeuchi nodded obediently. She gracefully placed down her lunchbox in her hand, took off her gloves, and revealed a pair of extremely white hands. Then she slowly inserted her right hand into her temple. The next moment, she actually pulled out a scroll from her head. This scene made everyone's eyes light up, especially Shishimono Satoru, a short-haired guy who looked like a high school student. Shishimono Satoru watched Mayumi Takeuchi with joy and anticipation. "Here it comes," he said. "I love watching Mayumi's divination the most." In an elegant fashion, Mayumi Takeuchi unfolded the scroll on the ground, and then took out an ink brush and a bottle of dark liquid from her arms. Mayumi Takeuchi's right hand paused in the air for a while, and a strange force began to gather in her palm, then around her whole body, and finally extended to the thin brush hovering in the air. Also, due to this strange force, the liquid in the bottle did not freeze when she unscrewed the lid, but a faint smell of blood escaped in the air. Mayumi Takeuchi's expression became solemn, and her eyes were momentarily stained with a hazy color. Right after, they became as sharp as a knife the moment she dipped the brush into the liquid and wrote on the scroll very quickly. After a while, the long scroll was filled with blood words, and a strange glow emanated from these words. When the divination was done, Mayumi Takeuchi looked a little weak. She put away the brush and bottle back in her hand and got up as Fengguang Yuanjin picked up the scroll. He read it carefully, and his eyes became brighter and brighter as the arc on his mouth also became bigger and bigger until his entire face lit up. Fengguang Yuanjin laughed excitedly. "It seems our guests are coming, and there are a lot of them." When the group heard this, most of them hurried over to look at the fortune, while others pretended to be indifferent, but their eyes still glanced over there involuntarily. Fengguang Yuanjin looked up at the calm, yet excited faces of everyone, and began to assign tasks one by one. "Ryuzawa and my wife, you two go to the southeast. Nobunaga, you go to the west. The enemies there are suitable for you. Dagong will go east. His fortune is there today." A while later, Fengguang Yuanjin finished assigning the tasks to his subordinates according to the divination in Mayumi Takeuchi's scroll. As a couple, Takashi Takizawa and my wife Nanako nodded, and immediately took their weapons and left the warehouse. The samurai Tsukamoto Nobunaga looked lazy, said nothing, and just picked up his samurai sword and left silently. And Dagong Yenjin, a 2-meter-tall, bear-like black-faced man, also walked out carrying a cello case. And soon after, more than half of the people in the room were gone. Shishimono Satoru was completely unaware of these things and just cooked his lunch with a smile. Feng Guangyuanjin came to him and sat on the floor right opposite to Shishimono Satoru. He took out a silver spoon and scooped a mouthful of soup from the pot into his mouth. Then he showed an expression of enjoyment on his face. "It tastes really good. It seems I can have another full meal." Hearing this, Shishimono Satoru didn't know whether Feng Guangyuanjin was talking about the food or the next battle. Meanwhile, on the southeast of Linhai City, a mutant faction group from Hang City approached the designated area, where the eclipse moon was located through the Jiangnan region's satellite positioning. Leading the charge was Peng Jialua, a Delta mutant and the leader of the Hang mutant group. He brought about 20 elite men with him, 6 of whom were mutants with good strength. Among the remaining people, there are also elite players who were proficient in sniping, reconnaissance, and blasting. You see, according to the intelligence of the operations department, the 10 mutant teams had agreed to form a siege from all directions, and had gradually began to encircle and suppress the eclipse moon from these different directions. No one would be careless about the organization from Neon. After all, it was a powerful organization that destroyed all the forces in Linhai City. However, no one thought that their actions would fail this time. They have a geographical advantage and have satellite positioning guidance from the Jiangnan region, but the other party is in a foreign land like a headless fly. In terms of numbers, they were dozens of times the total number of the Eclipse Moon organization. Moreover, each organization is a top group in its own city area. Even if they use the number of people to pile up, they can pile that organization to death. At least that's what Peng Jialua thought. The Hang mutant organization braved the snow and moved forward cautiously, and they kept in touch with other forces at any time through the communication equipment. Just when Peng Jialua was about to let the scouts investigate the nearby terrain first, his pupils shrank suddenly, because he saw a person slowly heading towards them. Huh, one person? Peng Jialua was a little surprised, and his nerves were a little tense. He immediately ordered his men to prepare for battle and to be careful of a possible ambush nearby. They shouldn't act rashly, but rather wait and observe what their opponent was going to do first. At the same time, Peng Jialua was about to report the matter on the communication channel when he suddenly heard a sharp electric sound in his ears, which made his ears hurt. Peng Jialua frowned and was about to curse, but he saw a man with slightly long hair and wearing a black combat uniform, stopped hundreds of meters away. His right hand was even leisurely inserted in his pocket, looking at this side with an indifferent face. But his left hand took out a coin and placed it between his thumb and index finger, and a white electric light suddenly burst out from his hands. The coin, as a shell of the super electromagnetic cannon, penetrated the space and shot at the people of Hang City. The speed of lightning was too fast, and everyone did not expect their opponent to attack suddenly. Immediately, one of the mutants was pierced through the chest, and a large burnt hole appeared in his chest, and his eyes were full of incredible expressions, and he fell straight down. He actually dared to take the initiative to attack alone. Peng Jialua always thought that they were hunters, like the predators, and the other party was the prey. But how dare the prey take the initiative to show its claws to the predator? Damn these Japanese. I'm gonna fucking kill every last one of them. No matter how good Peng Jialua's temper was, he could not tolerate the other party killing his men in front of him. He roared, and his whole body suddenly swelled up rapidly, and a golden light enveloped his body. His muscles were expanding, his body was rising, and he suddenly turned into a golden Buddha more than 4 meters high, the indestructible form of Peng Jialua known as the Great Buddha Core of Hang City. Although they were caught off guard, Peng Jialua and his men still thought they had the advantage stacked on their side. Just as the group of people activated their superpowers and planned to kill Takashi Takizawa, a melodious music suddenly came from a distance. The voice was low and deep, somewhat similar to the sound of a flute. The sound floated through the air and came to the crowded people in Hang City. The scene in front of everyone's eyes began to strangely distort, and the light began to become mixed, as if countless colorful butterflies were flying in front of their eyes, and the whole world finally became distorted. Their heads began to feel dizzy, and they didn't know where to put their hands and feet. Peng Jialua shouted angrily, "It's a psychic ability user! Block your ears!" But the moment the music sounded, Takashi Takizawa had already raised his hands, holding 8 coins between his fingers, and pointed them in their direction. The electromagnetic cannon triggered frantic silver lightning in the air, and the rushing currents also drew 8 silver lightning tracks in the air as the coins were shot out. Unexpectedly, they all converge in Peng Jialua's direction. Anyhow, the entire encounter on Peng Jialua's side attracted the attention of the other 9 forces. The mutants in Hang City were attacked? They are so unlucky. It seems that someone is trying to break out of them. Should we go over to support them? Someone asked in the communication channel. The call fell into silence for a while before someone faintly suggested for anyone interested to go over and take a look. When no one gave a response after a brief period, it became obvious that no one was willing. The reward for this mission, including the management of the entire Linhai city, was very generous, so one less faction to reduce this open competition was better for the rest. Also, if Peng Jaloa's people can fight to the death with the Eclipse Moon group and consume part of their strength, it will definitely be good news for the others. However, their thoughts soon changed. In Yunzhou City, the team led by Li Tianlong was still on standby, hesitating if they should go over to support Peng Jaloa. Very abruptly, a sound of breaking through the air came from the sky. Li Tianlong looked up suddenly and saw a shadow swooping down from the high-rise building where it seems the individual was hiding. Suddenly, a silver blade flashed in the air, illuminating the gloomy area. Tsukamoto Nobunaga rushed into the crowd several times, and before everyone could react, the heads of the 5 people with Li Tianlong had been chopped off. Li Tianlong was dumbfounded. How is it possible? He was not surprised by the strength of the samurai, but the actions of the other party, as if they knew they were here. However, they obviously had satellite support from the Jiangnan region, and their intelligence was ahead of the other party. Why on earth were they found by the other party first? Not only them, but in just a few minutes, almost every mutant force was attacked by the Eclipse Moon. They were hiding well and were preparing to launch a collective attack at a signal. But every step they took seemed to be seen through by the other party, which put them in a passive state. Meanwhile, in the Combat Command Center of the Jiangnan region headquarters, Tu Yunlai stared at the screen with his eagle-like sharp eyes. He could see the pictures through the communicators carried by the 10 major mutant organizations. Even he did not expect that they could be beaten first. How could this happen? Did we leak the news? But immediately, Tu Yunlai denied this idea. Impossible. The headquarters is the only place that can accurately determine the location of each force. His eyes wandered around the combat center, scanning every staff member on the scene. Then he shook his head and denied this idea again. The security level of the command center is the highest. Every message sent here will be intercepted, and no one can pass on information to them across the security network. Then, it should be some kind of superpower, right? An exploration-type ability. But can this person cover such a large area? Tu Yunlia's eyes became sharper and sharper, and he suddenly felt that this incident was becoming a little tricky. The battle in Linhai City has already begun, and this sudden situation definitely caught everyone off guard. The 10 major forces were a little panicked at first, and they lost some of their combat power due to the surprise attack. But they were still powerful and domineering, so they soon stabilized their position. Especially when they found out that they were not the entire Eclipse group, but only 1 or 2 people, they began to feel relieved. Especially in the east of the city, Li Guoqiang from Baking City and Meng Shucheng from Sixing City joined forces to fight against the enemy. Their opponent was only a man in a suit, as strong as a bear, carrying a cello case. Just one person. Li Guoqiang frowned, wondering if these Japanese people had shit for brains. Didn't they see that there were 40 to 50 people from the 2 factions on his side? If he came alone, it implied that their enemy was willing to die. Kill him. Li Guoqiang didn't spare any words. There was no possibility of a peaceful negotiation between the 2 sides, and he didn't understand what the other party was saying anyway. Immediately, 10 sharpshooters came out, holding sniper rifles and aimed at Dagong Yanjin and started shooting. And they used high-energy bullets that the Jiangnan district had approved for them to use. Dagong Yanjin looked at the bullets they fired, but didn't dodge at all. Instead, he silently took off his suit as the bullets fell on him in multiple directions, tearing his clothes, but never penetrating his skin. After several crackling sounds, it is revealed that Dagong Yanjin's skin is as impenetrable as a steel fortress, and his dark and strong muscles were like forged steel. He turned out to be a mutant of the strengthening system. If that's the case, then we have various means to greet him. Meng Shuqing said lightly, "You see, high-energy bullets are more powerful than armor-piercing bullets, and even mutants who are shot are in danger of death. But among the mutants, the strengthening type is a pure monster. Their abilities are not fancy, but simply strengthen their basic physical abilities. Because that is a physical mutation. It allows their bodies to reach the level of chariots and even fortresses, and they are immune to bullets and even small thermal weapons." Li Guoqiang looked at Meng Shuqing, then back at Dagong Yanjin with a teasing smile on his face. A strengthening type mutant. Isn't that just perfect? Yes, it is indeed. After all, we are also in the same department. It seems Li Guoqiang and Meng Shuqing were also powerful strengthening type mutants. In addition to the many subordinates beside them, which was more than 50 people, how can they lose against one person? Under everyone's gaze, Meng Shuqing and Li Guoqiang activated their supernatural powers. Meng Shuqing's body was shrouded in a hazy black light, and his long hair spread rapidly, even wrapping up his body. Every strand of black hair flashed with a sharp light, and was sharper than the sharpest knife, capable of cutting through anything. The extremely long hair extended even longer and seems to behave like it's gained some form of consciousness. Meng Shuqing narrowed his eyes at this moment, full of smiles and unfounded self-confidence. Li Guoqiang, on the other hand, took out two heavy dark iron crutches from behind and held them on both sides with a strange glow. He first took on a stance, doing a good job of defense, and then ready to attack at any time. At this moment, Dagong Yanjin calmly reached out to open his cello case and took out something that caught Li Guoqiang and Meng Shuqing's attention. It was a strange-shaped spear, more than 3 meters long when assembled, but the spear head was flat, like the wings of a dragonfly. Dagong Yanjin skillfully held his spear, the dragonfly cutter, and looked at the two leaders with a smile. He then muttered in neon language, stating that Mayumi's prediction was really accurate like always. Li Guoqiang gave the order, "Go ahead and kill him." Immediately, dozens of mutants behind Li Guoqiang quickly dashed towards the big factor Yanjin. Dagong Yanjin just waved the dragonfly cutter in his hand with a cold look and roared. Suddenly, a burst of golden light began to cover his whole body, transforming him into a 3-meter-tall, furry, and brown-striped peerless monster. This was Dagong Yanjin's orc-type mythical monster ability, the Tide Tiger. Holding a huge dragonfly blade in his hand, he scanned all the mutants running towards him with his brown vertical pupils. The two leader-level mutants were the main attackers, and was about to attack him one after another. But seeing the iron tower of a beast, everyone, including the two, momentarily halted their assault midway. Li Guoqiang and Meng Shuqing immediately realized that Dagong Yanjin was actually an orc-type mutant with a beastman-type ability. Dagong Yanjin just made a simple horizontal slash, drawing a circle with himself as the center. The turquoise blade flashed through the air, and a beautiful arc appeared. The two powerful Delta-level enhanced mutants were suddenly split into two on the way forward, with the upper and lower bodies separated directly. After the absolute gap in level appeared in the battle between the mutants, the number of people could no longer make up for it. The leaders of the two major forces, Li Guoqiang and Meng Shuqing, did not expect that their well-trained bodies could not even block a casual slash of the Great Hall Yanjin. Can't even be said that they blocked it, because they didn't even have time to react before they were cut in half. It seems the speed of the martial arts in the world were almost indestructible and can't be broken easily. Anyway, it wasn't until their bodies fell to the ground that the rest around them realized what had happened. The extremely painful wails of Meng Shuqing and Li Guoqiang were heard in the air. This kind of execution was 10,000 times more painful than killing them directly, because they were all strengthening mutants with tenacious vitality. Even if they were cut in half, they didn't die immediately despite the extremely cold temperature. But everyone understood that their death was only a matter of time, and the next few seconds was just torture. The dozens of mutants and elite warriors who ran towards Dagong Yanjin were all scared and even lost the courage to attack. They turned around and started to run in absolute terror. However, Dagong Yanjin did not intend to stop. "Since you're here, don't leave." Dagong Yanjin rushed in one direction like a hurricane, and the huge dragonfly in his hand proceeded to slice through everyone present like a hot knife through butter. That kind of incomparably powerful force, when facing the mutants below the Delta level, even if they are wearing combat uniforms, they are completely unable to resist. It became a one-sided, overwhelming massacre, and such a scene was clearly witnessed by Tu Yunlai at the Combat Command Center. The staff of the entire center were shocked by this scene and didn't know what to do. The joint army of the two major forces in the outer city was actually killed by one enemy like cutting melons and vegetables. His strength is at least at the level of an elite member of the investigation team, or even above the level of vice captain. No wonder these monsters can run rampant in Kanto, leaving the Izumo organization helpless against them. The battle at Dagong Yanjin's side was resolved very quickly. More than 50 people, in the end there was no one left. Although those who came there were all the elites of the outer city forces, nearly half of them were mutants. After killing all of them, Dagong Yanjin happily devoured their origins. And although at his level, the improvement he could get from devouring lower-level mutants would not be too great, the quantity, however, could make up for the lack of quality. What a delicious treat! Dagong Yanjin showed an endless smile at the corner of his mouth. I really hope that the Jiangnan region can send more food over, preferably the best and higher quality food. Tu Yunlai continued to watch Dagong Yanjin in silence, and his eyes became more and more solemn.